dear friends, and welcome to the land of family gaming experience. I am your wizarding host. I'm just kidding. I have no idea where that came from.
What's a wizarding host? What is this?
I don't know. I just have to be weird every single time I come on. I don't know what it is. It's like a compulsion. But I am Hayley Bell, one half of Party of Two RPG and co-creator of this show. And it's fantastic and wonderful. This show was created specifically so that we can all join together and discuss, have interviews, and open discussion about gaming and families in that gaming. It's very exciting. So, before we get started, Weston, can you bring our dragon in?
I can. So, are we ready to get started?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Family Gaming Experience. Sorry, my mouse froze for a second there.
I just like dancing to that music. It's super fun. Anyway, let's go around and just kind of introduce everybody and who you are and what you do, where you come from, if you want. If not, that's fine too. Jerome, who are you?
I am the guy in the third chair in cahoots with Party of Two RPG. My name is Jerome. I am from Lost Tribes Gaming. You might have seen us from our Vampire and Marvel superhero streams, which because we have back-to-back streams from 2 Wednesdays, I should say, this Friday and Saturday we'll be streaming. So if you can, tune in. If not, tune in. Party of Two is you're doing Scions this Friday, right? Oh no, you're not actually.
Not.
It's gonna be a throwback.
So come on in if you're not going to watch a rerun.
If you don't want to watch a rerun of something that's already played.
Well, if you've already watched it, they may have already watched it.
They might have.
No, it's totally cool. Seriously, go hang out with them. Their stream is absolutely incredible. Storytelling is wonderful.
Good. Thank you. Oh, and Flyboy24, thank you very much. He confirmed that the sound is good on their end. So video
good.
Sound good. We are golden. Yes.
Fantastic. Weston, who are you?
I am Weston Bell. I am the other half of Party of Two, and I'm the tech guy here. So I'm just checking. I got everything running all around me. I literally have 1, 2, 3, 4 screens right now running with different things. So if you see me moving around and doing things throughout the stream, just know I'm trying to keep all the tech running good.
Yeah, if he looks like he's not paying attention, that's because he's not. But that's fine.
Ouch!
Or he has to go to the bathroom and he's holding it like a trooper.
Oh, so good. So
that I do a little dance.
If you start
happens.
doing the potty dance, I will cut this a little short, love. All right, Steph, who are you?
Hi, I am Steph. So I run the ttrpgkids.com blog, where I review games, write tips and tricks for running tabletop games with kids. I do interviews, like I transcribe them, and then there's a whole bunch on there. And then I also write my own games. So I wrote a 30-week pre-K game curriculum and a whole bunch of other games. There's like a solar punk one and like one that's kind of like Octonauts.
Oh my gosh, that is brilliant.
So yeah, so
our kids would be so into that.
They would be so into that.
Yeah, and TTRPG Kids is kind of like the one-stop shop if you are a parent wanting to play with your kids. Like, we get a ton of inspiration for shows for the family gaming experience just from looking at your website. Just so you know. We're not like stealing stuff. But like,
go ahead.
Just like lists and things. It's all very exciting. Oh, Valor Studios, thank you so much for subscribing.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love that. Thank you so much. All right, Mark, who are you? And introduce your guest as well.
Oh, yes. So my name is Mark Hansen, and this is my son, Jacob. and we were very excited to come and talk about family gaming because that's sort of what we're all about. We've created our own family-driven, story-driven RPG system. I don't know. Am I allowed to do shameless plug?
Do
Yes, you
all
are.
of the plugging. Oh, that reminds me. I'm supposed to be plugging you guys in the chat too. Hold on a second.
See, there you go. That's the Hero's Tale. And I also wrote a system agnostic, whatever you want to call it, parent's guide to role-playing games called Roll Dice Build Character. And
Very
I believe, Steph, didn't you review this one?
Yeah, I reviewed that book, and then we played a game together. So it was kind of funny. With,
Yeah, we
when the announced.
ran it through a sample adventure online. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then Jacob, my son, and co-designer, he and his brother Brendan were instrumental, of course, in the development and the entire inspiration for the Hero's Tale game system. And Jake's quite the game master in his own right now.
Awesome.
We started when they were early teens, right?
I was 14, I think.
14, yeah. And
I know I was in middle school.
yeah, and then just keep going. Yeah.
That is awesome.
So we're here to talk about all the fun experiences and joyful things that happen when you roll dice as a family.
Yes, and that is kind of like the entire thing. I think we all at least have children in our lives that we want to induct into the nerdiness, the nerdhood, as I call it. We have 3 little boys, 9, 6, and 5. Our 9-year-old's about to turn 10, and he started playing with us when we started playing back in 2020. So how many years ago was that? He was
2?
8.
So yeah.
He was 8, and he didn't understand the
Well, no,
concept.
he'd be 7.
He was 7. Yep, 7.
9.
But he didn't understand the concept really of like how to GM, and like so he would just make stuff up, and then when Weston would kill the monster, he would just like make new things up, and so like they never got to like he never got to a place where there was like an end because he was always just like, nope, that didn't kill it.
Well, it's the way kids normally do pretend. Like our 3 little boys, we see this all the time. You know, we're Power Rangers. Okay, I hit you with my sword. Oh, well, I have a shield that blocks that sword. Well, I have a ray gun. Well, this is a reflecting ray gun shield. Well, I've got a super blaster. Well, this is a super blaster blocker. It's like they have to just keep doing that. And so that also would come into the game a little bit when I'd let him GM. Which was always funny.
Yeah, it's very much, if you've seen Toy Story, it's like, well, I brought my attack dinosaur who eats force-filled dogs.
Yes.
I absolutely love it. Okay, so first I wanted to kind of talk about your, like, Steph and Mark, because Jacob wasn't alive yet. What was your first interaction with the TTRPG sphere? If it was D&D, if it was a different game, because that definitely gives us a focal point of like where you're coming from.
Go ahead, Steph.
Like,
Okay.
who wants to go?
So I got into it kind of I want to say fairly recently. So oh gosh, my first experience with it was a one-shot that my husband's coworker and friend was running, and they invited me to join in. And so, you know, we played it. It was fantastic. I loved it. And then it ended because it was a one-shot.
Yep.
And I didn't play again for a couple of years because it just wasn't on the radar. There was like life going on all around us.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after I had my kid, I started listening to some TTRPG podcasts, and my brother got me hooked on it, and then I got my cousin hooked on it.
Wait, what was the first one you listened to?
It was Critical.
Okay,
So
okay.
it
I
was
just like
That was the one that like I think a lot of people kind of get introduced with.
And
And so
that was my gateway drug too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the newer crowd.
basically. So we all got like hooked on it, and then we're like, oh, we really want to try this, but nobody's a GM. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so kind of like jumped in with this massive homebrew campaign and probably too many players. And, but it was fun, and we've been doing it since. So it's been 3.5 years.
Awesome.
3.5 years of I GM a lot, so
It feels longer when you GM.
a little bit.
In my opinion.
Well, and I will say though, you said with too many players, but I can tell you one thing: having jumped in, I jumped in as GM.
Yeah,
always.
he sacrificed himself so that we could play together.
On the altar of the eternal GM.
Forever
or DM.
GM over there.
But playing with one person, I will tell you the amount of stuff you have to write and how quickly they go through the content you write is much different. I would almost rather start with a bunch of people than start with one again.
Yeah, one is.
So they like kind of create content as they talk with each other.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, they totally do. Mark, what was kind of your beginnings?
I was actually about the same age that Jake just mentioned. When a friend of mine invited me over to his house to play this cool new game he had just gotten. And it was literally first edition. I was mentioning this in our previous chat, like the box with the 3 books and the 2 supplements.
Oh my gosh.
With the badly hand-drawn pictures and the typewriter typesetting and
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
back in the day.
I've
and
only seen images of
I was
those.
just thrilled right off the top. And I had to rush right out and buy my own. But in the time lag between when he showed it to me and I went out and bought it, they had put out what was called Basic D&D, which was a little blue box, 8x10 kind of thing, and it only allowed you to get up to 3rd level.
What?
And
Wait,
it
what?
had cheap plastic dice that chipped in the corners when you rolled them. And I was telling Jerome that I still have some of those dice today, and they're practically like marble spheres, because they've basically worn down all the corners. And then not long after that, they started publishing the first editions of what was known as the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual. The Monster Manual came out first, and then the others came out. And of course, like a good drug dealer, the first hit is cheap. the box was only like $10, but the others were, you paid for those hardbound books, but they were really amazing books, and we practically memorized them. And then,
But that's you want
I actually kind of talk a lot about my personal history and then the whole history of role-playing games. And I went through the whole satanic panic of the 80s and how everybody thought I was going to burn in the depths of the abyss because I played Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh my gosh.
And
Well, isn't everyone here Satan worshippers? I thought we aren't. Isn't everybody? I thought
What's the god's name? Oh, I was gonna have a funny joke and it was gonna be cool, and then
Pastor.
I believe you that it was gonna be funny.
No, it was not Absalom.
you don't want to say the
Absalom.
god's name.
No, Absalom's the name of the city.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about.
Pathfinder.
Yeah,
It's a Pathfinder. What's the name of the god?
It's an archdemon in D&D as well.
What is it?
Now you
Asmodeus.
made me forget it.
Abaddon?
No, that's the realm.
Absalom. Sorry, that's from Ron. Ron's gone wrong. I can't remember. See, it was gonna be
Absalom is actually from the Bible.
that too,
That David's son, yes.
and it's also in Ron's gone wrong because the robot
Osmodeus.
can't go. Osmodeus.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bat. Okay,
Also,
no.
the snake in
Brian Jake's Redwall.
Redwall. right?
I have not
Oh.
read Redwall. Is one that I've wanted to, but it's always been on that list to read.
Yeah.
Got to take it off the list and actually
Yeah,
read it.
same.
It's good stuff.
I want to try that one.
You're like, stop with all your others, go to your TBR and take it off. Sorry,
Well,
my
that's
TBR is way
that's
too long.
actually one of the reasons why I wrote this book, though, is because I'm still surprised, particularly in Utah's church culture.
Mhm.
And it's not just Mormon church culture. In Utah's church culture in general, there still is an undercurrent of people who, even though they grew up playing the game, have since kind of been redoctrinated into the idea that it's satanic. And so I addressed that in the parenting guidebook.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
there was
We
an
live in
article
Utah
that just got put out.
There
was just an article
was?
that just got there was just an article that got in fact I posted on my Facebook that kind of went off on that tangent.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, if you go back I think maybe a week or so when it came out ish
Okay, wait,
or when I
hold
posted it anyways, but yeah, no, I totally get what you're talking about. I mean, it is what it is, and people are, for lack of a better term, superstitious. You know, when a lot
Well,
of
I mean,
that comes up.
it was a very convenient target in the in the 80s,
In the 80s,
because
yeah.
everything was satanic. You know, you were playing
Yeah.
rock records backwards, and everybody was, you know. And
Well,
of course, we
admittedly,
were
that
playing
was cool.
Dungeons and Dragons while we were listening to the evil music, so we were doubly cursed.
Double down. Yeah.
It was just no. Well, and that's something that I've never understood, because I grew up very religious family. If Orthodox Mormon could be a way, or Orthodox LDS, like very much so. But my family was always into Halloween. We loved Michael Jackson, and Thriller was our favorite record. My mom taught us all the dance from the music video. My dad was into video gaming and like fantasy games
Well, he
and
played
stuff like that.
Warhammer. He was big into
So
Warhammer, stuff like that.
when I hear people talk about it, and I was born in 87, so it was a little bit later when I became a person enough to realize what was going on around me. It's so strange to me that there's people out there that still feel like D&D or role-playing games in general are like the path to hell, because it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it all, but it isn't just role-playing games. I think it's all fantasy gets us. I mean, Harry Potter, you know, certain
Okay,
religious
yeah,
groups
that's true.
threw a fit about Harry Potter. So
Yeah,
I mean,
there's-
if you're gonna look at it from that standpoint, where you could technically take the idea from is that anything that would attribute a otherworldly power to anything other than God is promoting some belief in another power source in which you can put your trust. But the thing is, this isn't promoting anything that anyone believes is real.
No.
It's just fun.
Most of us
Yeah.
are not Tom Hanks.
Now,
Yes.
having said all of that, there were a few things that I had difficulty with in D&D and Pathfinder and a lot of these game systems. And one of the biggest problems I had with it, which was something I addressed in the book and addressed in the game, was that unless you had a very sharp and very aware and very conscientious game master, there were no consequences for anything you did.
Yes. And this
And
the murder
and so it's
hobo,
very easy to the murder hobos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was troubling to me as a dad, and that was one of the reasons why I finally started the game mastering in our house, because I wanted to set it up so that if they did go rampaging through the villages and the countryside, that people would come after them, that they'd find out that there were consequences to those actions. And then as we were developing our own system, we created a game mechanic systematic to that, which we call the karma points, which actually actively discourages rampaging murder hoboing, and
I know.
I love that.
actively encourages
Being not a jerkbag.
Not be a dirtbag.
I'm a 13th level dirtbag.
And I know I enjoy systems like that. Like I know Pathfinder has its influence system that is an optional sub system that you can use. That is like, depending on what you do, like there's actual points that get changed, and then that changes things on diplomacy checks and things like that as far as how easy or bad are things. But it's interesting that we talk about this like, unless you have a GM, you can do whatever you want. But that went into video games. Grand Theft Auto, is exact video game representation of the murder hobo idea that could exist in D&D. The advantage of D&D and any tabletop RPG is the freedom to use your imagination. But anytime anyone are free to use their imagination in however they want, you can also go into the darker parts of your psyche. You can also go into the more noble impulses of the human mind.
It's that pesky thing called free will.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there's the really positive aspects that you can use it on. Like,
Thanks for sending it to me, Jerome, because you see me over here like I can't find the article.
like
You were making the Weston face, so I knew something was up.
the really focused ways.
Sorry, it's my eyes are scrunched and my mouth is open.
But a great example, like I know for us, one of the reasons I enjoy and am going to continue doing TTRPGs with our kids is our oldest. He is on the autism spectrum, and a lot of social things he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
They don't make any sense to him at all. And so trying to get him to understand how to socially engage, it doesn't come naturally to him. And so being able to play those situations out in this environment of the game, there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah, in a safe environment where it's not going to be so critical and not so harsh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
The consequences are not real life in that case.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good place for that to happen. Like, that's with my little one, he's only 4, and with like all the COVID shutdowns and everything, it's been really hard. Like he hasn't been in daycare so much and things like that. So I've been worried about him interacting with other kids. And so we've been able to sort of like play out scenarios in our games. And I think it's really helped him. And actually, like today, I took him to the park and there was another kid there. And he was like, "Do you want to play dragons?" And it was so cute. And they were just like playing back and forth. And he was using like the sharing thing that we had gone through in one of our games and stuff like that. So it's like really good to practice with like all kinds of social interactions from like even like the little ones. So
Well, the other aspect that I love specifically about TTRPGs, this is what drew me to D&D, is the problem solve in unique ways. In a video game, you have built specific mechanics that you have to do everything with those mechanics in that way. But in a TTRPG, it's, you know, they make jokes, and you know, the constant joke is that the bard, I'm going to go seduce the dragon. Yeah. But the fact that rather than walking up and just shooting the dragon with your fireballs, you can walk up and talk to the dragon.
Unless you have a GM who doesn't ever let you talk out things and use a diplomatic type solution and forces you to hit the dragon with the arrow.
I made her fight a dragon. There was no way this dragon was letting her go.
I just find it interesting that he's sitting over here saying,
I thought there was some subtext there.
Try the diplomatic solution, but in our game, it will never work.
I have let you diplomat your way out of fights before. This dragon had the intention of burning you.
I know, it wanted to kill us. I was trying to give it shinies.
You were. But that is the thing, and that's one is, you know, okay, try things out. Teaching nonviolent. Our oldest son, he's a lot of anger, and he has a hard time not resulting to physicality. And so playing out those scenarios of like, well, okay, what about if you use this, you know, could you use diplomacy here? How would you talk to them? And then you get them to play that out. Talk about a teaching tool for kids.
Mm-hmm. It's basically play therapy.
Yeah.
Jacob had something to say. Jacob?
if I could shameless plug again, our karma system, instead of being a punitive measure, is a positive measure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, that's cool.
you can use karma points to enhance die rolls.
Oh, so like +1s,
So-
+2s.
Right. So if you do good things, then at the end of the gaming session, you're awarded karma points. If you do lots of horrible things, you can actually lose karma points. Then in the next game, you've got this pool of karma points, and you make a roll and you miss it by 2 points on the die. Well, I'll just use 2 karma and bring it up to a success.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
So it's kind of like, if you're a good guy, then the universe
Smiles
drops
on you. Yeah.
some benefit on you there.
Because I don't know if you guys have experienced this. And Mark, I don't know. Do you listen to actual play podcasts very often?
He does
Or Jake?
more than I. Yeah, I have.
Okay, because I don't know. I feel like a lot of the podcasts that I listened to that are a little bit more adult oriented are always like that group of murder hobos, and that it's like the well, or like the big
Critical!
critical role. You're like, ha ha.
Well, yeah. So
Kind of. Well, they're like these ambiguous, like neutral, chaotic type characters, and everybody's kind of just trying to figure out who or what they are. Like, they're never like, we're gonna be a group of people who are going to go like save the kingdom because we want to save the kingdom because we love the kingdom. Like,
lawful good as an alignment has gotten the worst rap
it does.
Mhm.
in the community, and it's so funny for me because like I don't know if I could play anything.
You couldn't.
But
If you,
but
even if you
that-
started out evil, sweetheart, you would change within the
can't do
first
that.
session.
In my video games that are open world, I can't play the bad guy.
Ever.
I can't
He has
go-
tried. It's hilarious.
I can't do it. And I
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
and
So I got a couple of stories about that.
yeah, go.
One is recently, we ran this adventure. I had just read Mistborn.
Good. Bud.
Jacob had
By
just,
Brandon Sanderson.
Oh,
and Jake had read it
I just read that too. Yeah.
about 6 months before, and I read it. And in the world that we play in most of the time, there is a kingdom, and so I thought, we can kind of mimic this
Style.
sort of political style. So it's kind of loosely, it's not House Venture but we had our own houses, and we called it the Ballroom Battlefield.
Nice.
And Jake played one of the noble houses, and he was actually like the only truly noble house.
The closest misformed character to that is Ellen.
Yeah, but he was. It was called House Northill, and he was very paladin-like, but in a more true way. And it was kind of interesting watching him play that extremely good character. Everybody was trying to work for the good of the kingdom, but not everybody was fully above board.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a fascinating angle in it. And so Jake was having to work with the other players who were not always quite so paragon as he was. And then also his character was engaged to marry one of the daughters of the other house at the start of the game. And until she actually ended up putting a contract out on him and having him killed, not actually killed, but tried several assassination attempts on him. It was a great, and so that actually did two things. One is it was wonderful to see him as a father fully embrace the Paragon role and have a great time at it. And there were some times when he said that he was struggling with the decisions to, how dark can you go in pursuit of a good cause, right?
Good question.
And so that was kind of cool. And another cool thing about that adventure, there would be sometimes 2 and 3 weeks where we would go without making a single combat roll. Lots of social checks, lots of perception checks, lots of stealth checks. But there would be some times where we would play a couple of sessions without ever making a combat roll.
So I would just like to point out to the general viewership that I'm not the only GM that doesn't do combat every session.
Haley does combat. If she's GMing her style, it's maybe every 3 to 4 sessions.
Yeah, because I'm major storytelling. Like,
now that
yeah,
combat can be fun and exciting.
I think she's learning that a bit more.
yeah, I am liking it, but it is not something that I gravitate to immediately as a GM.
In my
There's like all kinds of different styles. Like some GMs and some players like the social. Yeah.
in my home group, we are heavy RPers.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love RP.
Oh, we don't. There'll be like 2 or 3 sessions without. Well, I don't want to say without combat, but yeah.
But without
One of the commenters here is 1 and 2 D&D. Made an interesting comment here. He says it makes being a game master challenging too, and that's really true because it's easy just to throw more bad guys at them. But sometimes when you've got, in fact, in Ballroom Battlefield, I had to literally create a spreadsheet with all of the factions and noble houses and what their opinions were of each other noble house and and I had this whole thing so that I could just keep track of them. It was really a challenge in world building, which has made my stories much better, my novels much better too.
Yeah, so you write novels
so
based
thank you
off
for
of
making
your
that
D&D?
comment. What?
Do you write novels based off of your campaigns?
Well, yeah, sorta.
Okay.
They're not so much directly based off of the campaigns as they are in the world that we usually play in. And in the rule book, there's a sample adventure with some sample characters that you can just pull up and play with. And those characters became the main characters in the novels.
Okay, that's cool.
Gotcha.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm currently just in the early stages of book 4.
Well, that
Wow.
that reminds me of kind of what Paizo does for Pathfinder. They've got their crew of characters that are your beginner box ones, but then those are also on all the artwork, and then they had novels and stuff like that and things like that that are all based around those main focused characters, which makes it really cool because then if you read some of those and then go back and play, maybe you then go play your stock one from the book and you're like, ooh, I get to play this character and I've read their book and I know them a little bit more, and then that make the role play a little more interesting.
Well, funny story. A lot of the spells in advanced D&D and have gone on, like the Bigby's hand spells and the Tensor's floating disc. Well, Bigby and Tensor were some of the early characters that Gygax and some of his playtesters played in their early games, Arneson. And so they became sort of canonized by creating these spells, which then became part of the spell list that everybody could use.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Even funnier story, not relating to Gygax or anything, like that. We have these books on Audible, right?
Yeah.
And we played with our audiobook narrator.
Your voice actor. Oh, that is
That's cool.
That is so
Because
cool.
we wanted to show him, well, I wanted to show him the wonders of role playing. So we gave him the choice of these stock characters, and he played one of them, and he even used the voice he used before
in the book.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
really?
cool.
That is cool.
I love
That
You
is
really have to
cool.
check it out because he's from a little village outside of Dublin. And he has this beautiful, smooth Irish accent, which is perfect for fantasy.
Oh, that it is.
His name's Andrew McDermott.
Oh my gosh, that is such an Irish name too. Holy cow.
Now, I do want to
He's
switch.
become one of my better friends. It's really great. Never met him face to face, but we've become really good friends in working through these books.
I hope to one day.
Yeah,
Yes.
someday we'll get
Meet
rich
life.
enough to. I want to go on one of those package tours of Ireland where it takes you to all of the Irish castles and have him give me the tours. I think
I
that'd be
want to
great.
do that. They
Okay.
have their cruises. There are cruises that you can take that are British Isles cruises, and it goes through England, Scotland, Ireland, some of the small little craggy isles and stuff. I do too. Okay, Weston, what?
And I also want to walk across Abbey Road and play pinball in Soho.
Oh, I wish I was a Beatles fan to that level.
But I do want to. I want to switch topics just a little bit here and talk about. So one of the things is that it is different to run a game with adults and even with teenagers, and then running them with a younger kids. It is different. There are different ways you have to approach things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that for any of our viewers who have kids and are wanting to run these games. Steph, why don't you kind of talk? I know you're running games with your child. Tell me about kind of your experience there of running with young kids. Your games.
Yeah. It is there's a learning curve, is kind of the first bit. So, when you have a regular, or like a tabletop role-playing game that you're playing with grown-ups or with, teens and things like that, you can explain the rules, they can read, they can track a whole bunch of items on their character sheet, and do math. There's a certain level of emotional regulation that you can expect as well.
They're supposed to.
They're supposed to have that.
So,
Can't always guarantee it.
there's like a little bit of a baseline or an expectation that you kind of go in with. With little kids, a lot of times they can't read everything, or maybe their reading level isn't to the level of the game. Or, I'm playing with my 4-year-old. We started when he was 2.5, and he couldn't count to 20. So 20-sided dice was kind of not really an option. We were, oh gosh, I think the first session I ran was maybe 10 minutes long with him, and we kind of had to build up over time. And there is a definite learning curve with it. It's 100% worth it, but it does take practice, not just on the kids' part, but on the grown-ups' part who's running the game. You have to be a lot more flexible with the story, and be willing to let it get a little wild. So don't go in with a planned campaign. Expect, think about it. If a little kid is watching like 15-minute TV shows or something, and that's the most that you're letting them watch, or that they want to watch, that's about how long you want your session to probably be. And the topic for your game, my kid didn't really know much about dragons or anything. So the first time I tried to introduce a dragon, he's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "I mean, it's a big lizard with wings." And he's like, "I want to play something else." And so I'm like, so, we switched it up. We had read a book about a Yeti. So, we did a Yeti story, or something about like underwater sea creatures and stuff like that. So, be willing to kind of change it and adjust your perception of tabletop games a little bit. I would say know when to quit with the session if they're getting like super fidgety.
Yes.
Yes.
It's definitely okay to quit early and pick up again next time. It's not going to hurt anything.
Right.
So
Yeah, we max ours at about a half an hour with our 3 boys. We normally play on Sundays. And so like that's kind of like our after church activity. We get all dressed down and snacks and food, and then we play D&D for a little while. But half an hour is about the max.
Yeah.
And then they
like there's
start just getting
sometimes
goofy.
Yeah. Like there's sometimes my kid will go for like an hour or 2. But like, yeah, it depends on the game and like how much I let him get fidgety and like act stuff out. Like if I'm letting him act things out and I'm giving him coloring sheets during it, there's like activity sheets and stuff.
Oh, that's...
we can usually go for a lot longer.
Okay,
but,
like what kind of activity sheets?
Yeah. Like,
Hold on. Let's go back. Let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Activity sheets, like what? like the puzzle sheets, and like you make it.
Yeah. So there's the games that I've written have like a lot of coloring sheets and stuff in them, where there's like a map that you can draw on and stuff like that. Yeah, or like there's little mini games kind of interlaced throughout it, where it's like decorate the snowman after you cut the pieces out to like put on the snow sculpture or something. So there's like little activities to do, but there's like the Family Fantasy RPG series has like word searches or like little number games and stuff like that too. So there's like little games that you can put in there that give like a little bit of a break or a shift from the rest of the traditional TTRPG setup that work really well with young kids.
So tell us about the Octonauts one. Because so that Octonauts
she's
is a TV...
not like her brain has been stuck on that.
I'm stuck on that since you said that.
Yeah.
So for those who don't have young children's, Octonauts is a bunch of animals who are deep sea adventurers, and they go and save other deep sea fish and animals from really stupid things.
They're technically like marine biologists.
Yeah, they're like marine biologists.
They're a bunch of marine biologists.
And you learn, the idea is that you're learning about a different creature from the ocean with every little 15-minute episode. I actually really enjoy it because at the end, then you get to see what the actual creature looks like. And I'm like, that does not look anything like what you guys created in the cartoon. What the heck?
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's a show that I actually really enjoy.
Of course, sea anemones don't actually have smiley faces and eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. False advertising.
Yeah.
Anyway, so tell us about the game that you created that was like kind of like that.
Yeah. It was part of, so there's a game system called Caltrap Core, and there's a game jam for it. Yeah. And I had made one previously called Solar Mech Squad, which is like a solar punk mech suit kind of thing. And then I'm like, okay, we're doing another one. I want to do something a little similar. So I called this one Critter Mech Squad. And so you pick like an animal, and they've got like a specialty. It's like land, sea, or air. And then that's like their mech that they're in. They have like a ship or something like that. And then you roll on the table to figure out what kind of environment you're going to be in. And then it teaches kids to do a little bit of research. So let's say you get a desert environment. So you're going to look up a desert animal and pick maybe, let's say, you do a rattlesnake or something like that. And then you're going to roll to see what the problem is that this animal is having. And then as a group, you've got to figure out how to use your mechs to help this animal with that problem.
That sounds exactly like Octonauts.
Yep.
And it encourages kids to learn how to do research, because in helping with this, you get like bonus points if you go up and research animal facts about the rattlesnake, or maybe it's a type of bird or something that's like stuck up on a cliff. So the whole point of it is to It's like Octonauts. They're short little adventures, but then it's also teaching kids how to do research, and also, there's animal facts and stuff involved as well. But the focus is like the research and problem solving kind of section in there. And then the Solar Max Squad one, that one teaches about like alternative energy and like sustainable farming and things like that in the same vein, or like with the same kind of setup. So
that is so cool. I'm seriously floored by that whole idea, because I know that my little ones would love doing that, because then they could get on the computer and then we could research things and then they could come back to the game and like blah, blah, blah. That is I'm gonna have to go and buy that off of you. We're gonna take a really quick 5-minute break, and then we will be coming back to discuss the differences between playing and GMing for kids and playing and GMing for middle school and high school teenagers. So let's do a 5 and then we will be back. Sort of. Okay. We'll be back in 0 minutes. Hey, friends. Oh, the music ended so abruptly.
It did.
I was jamming. Oh, that's sad.
You jamming?
I'm jamming. Welcome back. I hope you guys had a great break. Went to the bathroom, got a drink. I don't know if everybody did that here, but some of us did. Okay, so coming back.
Went and checked on children.
Went and checked on children, found that older child had stolen a bowl of popcorn. You know, the normal stuff that happens. So we are going to be kind of shifting a little bit to the differences between playing and jamming for kids that are younger, say 12 and younger, and then playing with kids that are older into teens and possibly even early 20s, depending on their maturity levels. Just saying.
Maturity.
I know. Maturity is a thing that I don't think ever happens sometimes for some
What's
people.
that?
So I actually wanted to start, Jerome, with you because you have been so quiet this session or this episode.
Well, just like I said the last time somebody asked, I'm here every week.
I know you're here every week, but you're so quiet. You are a wealth of knowledge.
It's not
as well.
always such a big deal if I'm quiet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I won't start with you. Jeez.
You don't get to talk. Be quiet.
Shh.
I know.
Silence.
So for me, so in regards to the age brackets, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for me, it was I did start with my son when he was younger. He didn't really take to it, although we had the aptitude for it. I think it was more of an attention span for him. He just liked it, and it was really odd because I ran one or two games for him, and it didn't really sync. And then just one day, I happened to see him embedded in his phone, and just texting away. And I'm like, "Son, who are you texting?" He's all, "Oh, Dad, it's not texting. I'm playing in this Discord server." And I'm all, "Your text role playing?" And he just looks at me like, "Yeah." I'm like,
Duh.
Okay.
Okay.
Duh,
And
Dad.
it's flashing and going off. I'm like, he's involved in 2 or 3, and I'm like, wow. But yeah, so for me, like I said, the aptitude was there. I gave them an idea of a one-shot sort of thing, and it was a superhero game setting, and I let them kind of stylize their character, took a template, to make it easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I set up just a because it was superhero based. That's really easy. Sometimes with fantasy, you kind of have to say, okay, well, you were hired to go do blah. With superheroes, it's you happen to be at the street corner and villain B comes darting by with bags of cash.
Do it old
Game.
school, Batman level of
Yeah.
story.
Exactly.
That's where the
Well,
bad guys still wear masks.
Right. Spider-Man and his amazing friends, X-Men, 90s style, same diff. And
Paw Patrol.
I'll never forget it. He was playing, at the time, he wanted an armored character, kind of like Iron Man. He thought that was really cool. I'm like, okay, we can do that. So it was Mutants and Masterminds. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to see how this goes, because it was his first really botched role.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew what a botch was because he had heard his mom howling every time she would roll a 1. So he got that concept real quick. And it happened to him. And so his character, got hit, not for a whole lot of damage, but went careening into a building, fell right into the living room of some hapless citizen who happened to be watching television while this was going on, a couple stories down outside of her, her apartment. And so without even being prompted, he gets up real quick and he says, "I'm sorry, citizen, be right back," and darts right back out the, and I was like, yes. I was like, that's perfect.
Did you role play
Why he
the insurance claim later and him being called into court to explain?
This isn't the Incredibles.
No, I probably would have. That is so me. I probably would have, but again, it was a one shot, and he didn't really express a whole lot of interest thereafter. But so it was cool. Now he's actually a part of my games that I have now that he's an adult. He's a part of my big D&D Saturday game, and he came up with this concept, all by himself based on some of the notes that I provided him of the setting. And he's playing a Cobalt gunslinger.
There we go.
Nice.
Who has come from the prefecture, which is a amalgamation of Japanese and Korean culture.
I know what that is.
So yes,
So
Weston's
cool.
playing in another game that's in that setting, and so he kind of came up with this all by himself, and I was really proud of him. He researched the name for his character and kind of came up with the flair for it, and he's kind of like this disgruntled noble that follows the group around and whatnot. So it's great. But for me, it was, I think I needed to just plant the seed and then just let him grow into it. Not everybody take to it, right away.
Well, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that you can't push them. Any kid that you're trying to get to do something, the moment you push, the moment they're like, no, I don't want to do this. So it really does have to be something that you let them go into it as far as they're willing to go into it.
Yeah, 100%.
Which can be disappointing if you can't get them to go into it at all. And you're like, I want to share this with my...
Well, and he totally had the aptitude. I could see it in him because he was the type of guy that I had these miniature... They're model level like soldiers. They're really like small. They're for like train sets or really expansive model sets. Not like the typical big green ones that you would find in a bag at the store. So these were really deep, and so he would break out like those with a couple of vehicles and just set up somewhere on a table somewhere, and just make up his own story of like this group is attacking that group, and I'd hear sound effects, and it just kind of became the running joke that he was the cheapest kid to shop for Christmas, because really if I wanted to skate by, I could get him like 2 bags of the green army
Little
soldiers
army
that he
guys?
was set. Yeah.
Well,
He
and
loved
this
it.
Everybody knows that when you're using miniatures, if you do sound effects, you get +2.
Yes.
And if you make the little bouncy things as they move, then you get an extra inch of movement.
I don't think we've ever done that. I have like counted the squares though. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4. But I've always done that, even like with Monopoly and Sorry and stuff.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, but you bring up a great point here, Jerome. In this day and age of screens and video games and everything like that, there's a lot of kids that don't play pretend anymore. That they don't play pretend the way we used to. And this is a great way to get kids using their imaginations more and away from the screens. It's like the whole reason we started playing, I call us pandemic players, because we started playing during the lockdowns of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I wanted...
Because we were going to kill our kids.
My kids their ADHD was just going up and up and up with all the screen time they were getting. Because they were supposed to be on screens for their remote school, and then they wanted to play games, and then they wanted to watch TV. Me and Hayley both work from home, so it's like,
Yeah,
they're
was a
just
really
home
bad
all the time.
situation.
So one day I was just like, you know what? We're done. You're playing something that doesn't involve this stupid screen. Dice, paper, print off this thing. Name your characters.
Well, and we only had D6s too, so
Yeah,
like we weren't really gamers yet, so we didn't have. Now we have many sets of dice.
But it pushes it into that.
In fact, we
using
probably
your
need to do an
imagination.
intervention.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Not
anymore.
anymore.
We got her into rehab. It was,
More like we had a sit down
Grinding
focus
them up and snorting
conversation.
them.
And I was like snorting the dice. I'm like, I have the mini baby dice. Leave them alone.
No,
They're fine.
the problem was for a while when the Dollar Tree was carrying sets of dice. D20s, like the full set at the Dollar Tree.
They had
that
RPG
was when things were bad.
dice, and they had them in all the different colors. And it was for Christmas of 2020. They had them. and I bought every single color, more than one of them.
Because
I
you
had
have to, right?
Yeah, and then Target had them because they were called math dice at Target, and they were the little. Let me show you. You started it. You started this. Weston started this part of the conversation, but these are my little mini baby dice.
We need to get an episode where we bring on some dice makers.
Because, like, yes, we will have to. They're my favorite, but Target had them, and they were math dice. And I was like, these are the best things ever. And so I bought every single one. Every time I drove past a Target, I would stop and buy one.
So, but we got her into rehab. It was a near thing, but eventually, now it is manageable.
Now it is. But our kids are like color centric though, because that was one thing when we started playing with them to help them stay like engaged with what was going on, is that I did have sets that were all their color, because one of our kids' favorite color is red, the other is green, and the other one's blue. They're all boys. And like that was like their thing. That was all started by my mother. Long story. But they all had their own set of dice. And this last session that we played with them, that I took pictures and I posted them on Twitter, but they were stacking them. Like between their turns, they would be stacking them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my 6-year-old is stacking dice right now.
I also knew when it was time to roll to finish the session quickly when that was happening.
Yeah, they started like competing with each other to see how high they could make their dice towers.
Now, Mark, you definitely play with. So we got the younger Steph, your kids for. We've got Jerome. You played with your son. We saw 2 different ages. When he was younger, didn't quite get into it, and then he jumped into it a little later on. And then Mark, I know that you are playing with your boys.
Right. So
It's funny that you say that his first game was a superhero game you ran, because literally today we played superheroes.
Yep.
Oh, fun.
Yep. That was really cool. And so it's kind of interesting because I do have some experiences with these 2 boys that goes back to when they were like 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a little different. And then we did some other little things when they were, 9 and 10-ish. And then they started really pestering me to start playing fully in earnest when they were in their early teens, mid-teens. And so that's when we really started gaming. But when they were little kids and they say, Daddy, bedtime story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would sit down, lie in between them, and I would say, okay, once upon a time there was a what? And I would point to one of them.
Oh, I didn't know you were putting me on the
So
spot.
you put me on the spot, Dad.
It usually take them this long.
Crap. A blue elephant.
Okay, so once upon a time there was a blue elephant, and he was riding his
Unicycle.
and then I'd point to the other one and I say, and then, and so we'd
They're
make up
building
our
a
own
story.
bedtime stories.
That is cool.
And it didn't really occur to me until quite a bit later that I was actually doing role-playing game systems without the dice.
Well, it's collaborative storytelling, and that's what TTRPG.
And they loved all that. The problem was that with doing that is it got them more excited and less likely to go to sleep.
That is, I actually discovered that exact same problem when I would write the boys into stories that I was telling them, and they would not want to stop. And I was like, okay, we have to stop doing this because this is riling them.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that children's stories are generally so bad is so that they will go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like the fairy tales.
Yeah.
That are
Anyway,
like, half of them are so.
well, those are different because in those they're so violent. It's like the kid's like, I better go to sleep or my dad's gonna kill me.
Depends on which version of the
He's gonna feed
story
me to the wicked witch.
Yeah.
Depends on what version you're reading to them.
Yeah.
Our kids were for a little while. We're listening to at nights. We had a bunch of fairy tales we'd found online, but they were grim. They were the
grim fairy tales.
And I just remember this one where stepmother had killed the girl, and then she came back as a bird, and she flies around saying, "My stepmother killed me," and I'm just like, what are we
What
having
is
our children
happening
listening to?
Yeah, well, and then our
people
boys
complain that
started.
Bugs Bunny is violent.
Yeah, well, and our boys started saying, "Can we not listen to this one?" And it was like, blue, where he kills all of his wives. The Bluebell, Blue Castle, Blue, whatever the blue. Do you guys know which one I'm talking about? Where he gets
No.
married and then he tells his wife, "Don't go into this room," and
I don't know that one. No.
and then her curiosity takes Bluebeard.
With the
Bluebeard.
yeah,
Oh,
Bluebeard's Castle.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
that
I
one.
guess I am familiar with that one, sort
They
of.
I haven't
hated-
read it, but I know what you're talking about. Like I've heard that one. Yeah.
Which I don't understand. Like, if fairy tales are supposed to tell like moral stories, like sort of like
Yeah,
Aesop's
no.
fables, like what does that
Yeah.
have to? Don't be
Yeah.
curious. Like, I don't know.
Historical fact: a lot of those fairy tales and nursery rhymes are actually political cartoons of the day.
Yes, that is true.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Or they're
Anyway.
cautionary tales for things that happen, bad
Yeah.
things that happen.
So then when they were a little older, I said, "Well, let's have some fun with this," and I could clearly tell they weren't ready to do the full manage your character sheet kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I had them run into make up some characters once, and they were wandering through this village, and a band of rogue kobolds or something attacked.
I think it was goblins.
Goblins, yes, attacked the village, and we changed it up, and the rules were really loose. And that's one thing that I learned when you're dealing with like 8 to 10-year-olds. Rules are much less important than fun and engagement.
Yes.
So, for example, Brendan, my older son, blasted one of the goblins with his magic missile. Great. Okay. I couldn't have the heart to tell him that he couldn't do magic anymore. He used his one spell, so I just let him keep blasting with the magic missile. Because fun is more important than rules.
And,
Yeah.
and with kids, that becomes very true.
Yeah.
You can't be a rules lawyer playing with kids.
No.
And
Still
an
win.
interesting comment. Somebody, I think it may have been Hayley earlier, said something about watching when the kids start fidgeting. My older son, who's always had sort of that activity kind of level,
Mm-hmm.
he would not sit down during the entire gaming session. He was pacing back and forth, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe we ought to cut this short. Oh, no.
He's had attention. He just needed
When
to
the
move.
goblins were all done and the town was rescued, he was wanting to play. And the next morning, he was up early saying, "Dad, let's play. Dad, let's play." And he was constantly pacing while we were playing. And
Mhm.
yeah, so your kids, gauge it based on you. I can't just say, well, if they're pacing, then they're not paying attention. Some kids are like that, some kids aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough.
Anyway, then fast forward to their early teens, and that's when I started dealing more in morals,
Mm-hmm.
and we started doing some interesting things after we got a basic core system worked out and balanced. Our early systems were way too magic heavy, and we really had to nerf magic. But nonetheless, we learned and we balanced things and made it work out a lot better. And our current system is really even and balanced, I think. Anyway, I started setting up the storylines into moral quandaries
Mm-hmm.
and letting the players at the table, not all of whom were our kids, some of them were lots of friends from the neighborhood who were coming in, many of whom actually, as somebody mentioned earlier, were on the spectrum too.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of experience with a lot of neurodivergence at our tabletop as well.
Mhm.
And and then I would kind of sit back and let them work out. We were doing a seafaring adventure.
Actually, Skyfaring.
Yeah, that's right. It was kind of
Skyfaring.
based on 101 concept,
Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet, that sort of
Oh, cool.
I remember Treasure Planet.
kind of thing. So anyway, they were running this blockade of this evil empire, and a ship approached them laden with refugees from this floating island that the evil empire had just invaded. And could the character ship take on these refugees while this ship went back for more?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched them all talk literally for an hour, at least, debating why they should or should not accept these refugees on board. And nobody stacked dice. Everybody was engaged. And I was just amazed to watch my kids having a moral discussion about whether or not. And the cool thing about it is all of the sides had some right. It wasn't like this choice is good and this choice is evil.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were worried about their own safety. They were worried about whether or not their ship could even handle all of the refugees. They were worried about, could there be plants and spies among the refugees? And
yeah, that's so cool.
Then there's the moral question of why would you can't just reject them, because then, you know, so should we take some of them or not all of them? And it was just amazing to me as a father to watch all of my kids going through this question.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result, they finally decided to take on the refugees, sail them to a port, and then go back to... And that was another thing, because they were currently on a leg of the mission to find this big magical item, this big MacGuffin that would destroy the evil empire.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another part of it. Is it more valuable to continue the quest and destroy the evil empire, or is it more valuable to take a temporary aside? So when we get into those teenage years, in addition to avoiding murder hobos, you can actually have some serious life lessons going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I write about this a lot in the book. And this is just one example. There were so many of them, and it was so much fun. Even something like Bonnaroo Battlefield that had its underlying lesson of can we work the system so that it benefits the whole city?
Yep.
And how far do you go as a manipulator of this frankly very self-driven system in service of a greater good? How far do you get into the selfishness of the system and still keep your altruism? I mean,
Exactly.
you can't teach this stuff in a philosophy class.
No,
You
and I
just
think
have to experience it.
I think one of the cool parts about D&D, especially with teenagers and stuff like that, is there's so many people nowadays that are doing like D&D groups at schools and like creating like after school programs specifically for kids to play role-playing games, and doing that specifically, teaching moral lessons, giving them the opportunity to truly explore these scenarios before they get to a place where they are adults, and the consequences of those choices are significantly more real.
Well, yeah, 'cause you get to play out the
Well, somebody
difference.
mentioned problem solving. That's an excellent thing that you learn. Cooperation and teamwork. You know how quickly a party is going to fall apart if they're inter-party bickering.
Well,
Whereas if we're working together, then we can actually kill this dragon.
Well, and even things as simple as turn taking, you know.
Yeah, especially for the younger
For
kids.
the younger kids, you know, our 6-year-olds like that, it's like, oh, I do this. No, it's not your turn. It's his turn. He's talking about what he's doing right now. So then after he's done, then you get your turn. And reinforcing even simple ideas like turn taking and stuff like that.
Well, and cause and effect for both age groups as well, because cause and effect doesn't come into play for the human brain until we're in our 20s. like truly understanding cause and effect. And so, teaching that skill.
Not even then.
Not even then. Sometimes not even then. I don't know. I'm getting better at it. I'm 35. I'm getting better at it. I understand if I spend $25 at the Dollar Tree, then I don't have $25 to put in the bank.
Well, I got better.
I
But
got
think of all the
better.
money you saved.
But that's another thing. But like the cause and effect. But that's like money management is another thing. If like you really hammer down on the money management side of it.
If you actually didn't give out a ton of gold in your thing, but they need to buy magical items and stuff like that, or potions, and you actually made them keep track of the money in there, you can teach a finance lesson right there.
Sure.
Yeah. You start having
Originally
it to
was-
where they have to pay their tax to the Adventurers Guild. On there.
They're having to figure out what's a 20% tax, and do you include your magical items that you purchased in the year, because technically that is an asset. Like, I mean, if you really wanted to go into it, you could do
You
that.
can go, and that's again the cool thing about them is you can go as deep as you want. As the GM,
Of course,
what was that, Mark? What?
Of course, then you have to role play the situation when somebody comes pounding on their guild room door and there's like 50 trolls there and say, we're with the IRS and you need to be audited.
Yes.
Well, I know I've listened to some actual plays where they did do something similar to that, where it was like, you have to be a part of this guild to be able to hunt monsters in this city, and you have to give this amount of money to them. And the party had to decide after they killed the monster, do we go back and try and get the money minus the fees, or do we go to a different city and sell the monster bits
and see if
we can squirt around it? And they eventually decided to be honest and go back to the city and go back to the guild and stuff. But that was a real debate between the party members of like, we could make more money if we just went somewhere else. It's like, yeah, but we kind of left all of our stuff back at the guild. We kind of need to go back. But yeah.
Moral dilemmas.
Yeah.
One question, just we're almost out of time.
I know.
So one question I do want to ask, because this is something I'm struggling with our boys. I love D&D. I love Pathfinder. I definitely love the fantasy. I like the complexity of it. I'm that rules guy. I do my power builds and stuff like that. You can't do that with young kids you're playing with.
No.
What? And honestly, looking at the system, I'm probably going to switch our kids from playing D&D, because even doing your D20 plus your modifiers for our 6-year-old, it's a little hard.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first that the wife has heard of this.
Well, I mentioned this the other day, but what are some systems? If someone is a fan of D&D, they've played D&D, but they want to play with the young kids, they worry about it being too complicated. I'm going to start with Steph. What systems are out there would you recommend trying if they are into the whole fantasy or RPG? They played the D&D because that's the most well-known one, but they want to play with their kids.
Yeah. So first, I have a list of like, I think it's like a couple hundred games now on my site. That's all. It's for kids, teens, or all ages, and you can sort it by age target. Mm-hmm. So that's a good place to start. And I'm reviewing as many of them as I can. So about every other week, I'm posting another review on there. And a lot of those would be great ones to like start out with. If you're looking for something that is D&D compatible, the Family Fantasy series is really good, and they have a tiered system where they start you out on really basic rules, and then as your kid gets more comfortable with it, you can move into tier 2 and tier 3, where it kind of like gradually introduces you into it, and the stories that go with it are all like kid friendly. That's set in like a fairy village, or there's like a dinosaur one that my kid really got into. Like he got his little stuffed animal and was like pretending to ride it around, even though it's like comically small. So that one's a good one. There's also Sodalitas is one that's like a really rules light one that was intended to go with like a whole class of kids for like an after school program, and run in like really short sessions. There's if you want for really really little kids where there's no mechanics, I will shamelessly plug Story Guider real quick.
Go ahead.
So
Please shamelessly plug
it's,
things.
so that's one that I had made for preschoolers. There's I don't want to like leave any out, but like there's way too many for me to mention all of them. Starsworn's another good one that's for little kids.
We dropped the
check
link.
out that list.
Yeah, we dropped the link to your site, to your link tree there. Go ahead and you can click on that because there are a bunch of them.
They're, like I said, you're kind of like the authority. They're like the one place to go to get all of that type of information. I love your website. I also dropped a link to the family fantasy or fantasy family, whatever thing of the Fairies of the Mistglade, because you've mentioned that a couple of times. So I wanted to throw that in there. We don't have an affiliate link yet. So we're not making any money.
So go click it.
So you can go click it.
And I think, Mark, you have a system you'd recommend people try.
Maybe. I don't know. Have you? I don't know.
So what's it called? Give us the
It's called The Hero's Tale.
Okay.
And it really is best for early teens on up. We play it with full-grown adults, and it has just enough robust rules for that, but it's also, we've played it with people as young as 8 and it has functioned. So it's a pretty wide stretch. It's much more story focused. Even the combat is more story driven. And I think that's one of the reasons why it translates so well throughout the ages and also into so many different styles. It is very streamlined. For example, we only use a D20.
Okay.
So everything reduces down to some just
D20,
core.
D20 in math.
Yeah, D20 in math. And it reduces down to just to core organic rules of I'm trying to do something, I roll a D20, I check my modifiers, and that tells me how well it happened. And that's true of combat, it's true of magic, it's true of everything. It's much more flexible.
And we don't have a set spell list. Instead, we have different types of magic, and then you can do whatever you want with that magic.
So
yeah, you have what are called will points, and
that's nice.
and there's a chart. So the player says, I want to do this and this and this with my magic. And then the game master looks at the chart and says, okay, well, that'll cost you 3 will points. Okay, marks it off and rolls his dice.
Okay, cool.
So you can be very innovative in the way you use your particular form of magic. It also means that the game master can create and adapt different cultural magics into the game system without having to create vast new spell lists.
That's nice.
That's really nice.
We did a couple of adventures based on that cartoon Miraculous, and
no, yeah, I know that one. It's on
and we just adapted the heroic aspect of will points into the superpowers that the kids had, and boom, roll with the game. So it's a very flexible system that way. It does require a certain level of reading and math skill. And if the children are not as adept at that, then it falls to the adults in the room to support them in that. We did a demo game with a family. They had a 6-year-old girl, and the 12 and 13-year-old kids were very engaged. The 10-year-old was very engaged. The 6-year-old girl struggled with the character sheet, but the mom was sitting there right there with her, helping her out with that. She had the most fun in a lot of ways because when they were, what's the word? Guarding a trade caravan through a dangerous woods, and they were attacked by brigands. And the little girl just says, well, I jumped down, and she was a nature wizard. I jumped down and I summoned my pack of wolves. And I'm like, where did this come from?
And playing with kids, it will be that way.
Our playing
And I
6-year-old
said,
is so
well,
like
it'll
that.
cost you blah, 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 many will points. And she rolled it, and she summoned a pack of 3 wolves.
That's
And then she proceeded to explain to me that each of these 3 wolves had a magic gem in their forehead. I'm like, okay, well, we'll kind of limit this a little bit. But yeah, she just completely ran with it. And
Well, it's like I remember we were playing with our kids, and Gabriel, our 6-year-old, he was a fighter.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's like, and I have my pet panda.
What?
You have a pet panda? And I have a sword that I hit him with my panda. I'm like, okay, so your sword is shaped like a panda. So suddenly he's got this panda-shaped sword.
But
Doesn't
then-
make any sense at all.
No.
But hey, who cares?
And he did keep referring to it as his pet panda.
Yes.
And we're like, it's your sword, right? Yeah, he's my pet panda.
So
But
his
it's
sword
your
is called
sword, right?
his sword is called his pet panda. And so being flexible, if you're playing with little kids, just let it go. Just say yes. It's an experience in yes
Let it
and.
go.
Pick your battles.
It is an experience
gives
in
new meaning
improv.
to the term roll with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So with that, I think that we are at time.
We are.
I'm so sorry. This has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much,
So much
Steph and
fun.
Mark,
Thank you.
Yeah,
for coming
thank
on
you.
and just like giving us of your time and your talent, and the knowledge base that you both have is absolutely incredible. So I'm going to drop the links once again in the chat. So in 30 seconds or less, let's go and oh my gosh, DM of course just rated us.
Oh, geez.
And we're being rated. Yay! Thank you.
Hey, DM, we're heading out.
We're like ending here. Here's the thing though. DM, we are 6 people from hitting our goal of 400 followers.
Yes.
So if anyone who just dropped in the raid doesn't already follow us, you should follow us.
And then since you just joined us, let's plug our guests real quick.
So yeah, in 30 seconds or
Plug
less.
your guests again.
Let's start with you, Steph. Who you are, where you can find your stuff, all that jazz.
Hi, I am Steph, and I'm from ttrpgkids.com. You can find all of my stuff at TTRPGkids, and that's spelled normally no Z or anything in it. It's with an S.com. There's game lists, there's family-friendly podcasts, there's interviews that have been transcribed into like articles, there's game reviews, all kinds of stuff over there, tips and tricks, crafts, all kinds of cool stuff.
That's amazing.
So if you're interested in finding out resources and ways and games to play with kids and how to do that better, dropping it in the chat right now.
There it
There's the link for you to go find out about TTRPG Kids and start playing with your kids.
Your bebes. Mark, who are you? Why are you here?
So we are all about family role-playing games, The Hero's Tale, and my book on parenting using role-playing games. The easiest way to get to all of these and Jacob's Worm Heist game is at windmillcrusaders.com.
Hey, there's seven that.
And that'll
Typing
link
it
to
in.
all
Hold
of the
on.
various places where you can buy stuff
Hold on.
and make us rich.
Yes,
Let's
'cause
make them
that's
rich.
why we do this, because there's so much money in TTRPGs, especially
Yeah,
as the
we're just-
independent creator. So much money.
We're just rolling in gold pieces.
There you go.
we are so D&D rich.
So everyone go and visit them, check out their wonderful stuff, share it. And then while you're here, please follow. And if you want to support our channel and our bringing of different family-friendly TTRPG content, please subscribe here to the channel.
And follow.
And follow. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can actually subscribe for free.
For free.
And support the channel and support us and help us to continue to create more of this amazing content.
Take from Amazon, give to us.
Yay!
Totally kidding. Jerome, you have something going on Friday night because we are going to be lame and not have anything new happening. So what is going on with you?
Friday night is our Ashland by Night game. It's a Vampire the Masquerade. Our group has been diligently investigating somebody who's missing, a mortal who's missing. They're actually doing some private eye investigating work. So we're going to be taking care of that, as well as our Marvel Superheroes game, Modern Age Heroes, which is this Saturday at our, Vampire game is at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. Also Arizona time right now. And then our Marvel Superheroes game is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Saturday.
Woohoo! So go over and follow them because they're amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all that jazz. We are Party of Two, Weston and I collectively. We are so very thankful that you guys were hanging out with us tonight and having this fantastically wonderful conversation. Remember that we all love, I don't know where I'm going with this, but we all love each other here in the TTRPG space. So share the love, share the wealth, follow our channel. That's all I've got.
Well, in that same vein of let's share the love.
Are we gonna go raid?
Let's see who we can raid into in order to help make their days. So
yes.
give me 1 second.
We're gonna go make somebody else's day. Because I just want to point out the incredible Power Rangers logo behind me.
She loves the way that her Power Rangers logo.
I hand drew that. I did not draw that. That was drawn for me.
All right, so we currently have, let's see.
Who's online right now?
We have got online right now. There's Phoenix.
Phoenix and Wacky.
Yes.
They're part of the stream team. So
They
let's drop into Phoenix.
They are currently playing Dungeons and Dragons. They've got a campaign going, so let's go say hi. Everyone, please join the raid. Thank you so very much for being here with us and all of our amazing guests. And we will be back here in 2 weeks.
Yep.
2 weeks. If you do have anyone that you think would be great that helps, increase our knowledge and experience in family gaming, please message us on social medias.
Let us know. All right. Peace out, you guys.
Let's raid.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.